Hey everyone, I'm Heidi. This is Foresta, and we are for the first time on our podcast having, should I start over since it's just, no? Okay. And for the first time, we were having a guest on our show, and this is Janice Solomon. Janice is a dear friend of mine. I would say probably one of my closest confidants. And we have known each other for I was just doing the math the other day. I was like, oh, so at Reach, which is where we met, I think that was 6 years ago. And we have, our friendship has developed in a lot of different ways. And we have really created this connection, this trust, this realness with one another that has been so beneficial in my life. And anyway, so that is my formal introduction of Janice Solomon, and I'm going to let her tell you a few things about herself, and then we'll start the conversation.
So I'm just going to start by saying I still don't have a clue how to get this to live stream on my page.
Okay.
So I copy the streaming link. I see a little thing there, and then just pop it over.
I think you can do it that way. I'm fairly certain we can also share it somehow.
Well,
So
if you can. I don't mean to like.
No, it's fine.
This makes me so nervous. Hello, everybody. I'm Janice.
I'm going to put it on your page, Janice. I think I can do that.
Oh, that would be so sweet. So I don't have to
do that for my page too, because I can't find you on your. I can't find this on your page for that stuff.
Okay, good.
Yep, looks like
So
I can.
I'm signing out on trying to do some techie stuff. Hi, everybody. I'm Janice Solomon. Thank you for that really sweet and wonderful intro, Heidi. And ditto, ditto, ditto. In terms of friendship and confidant. And yeah, it's been at least 5 years, Heidi, maybe longer. And I also want to say that there's something about friendships as we get older that's so sweet and so precious. And I feel like for us, ours is growing, you know, but it, you know, like if we're going to like have the plant thing, we're still like the seed sprouting, but Heidi and I have I think a full plant. I like those metaphors because I'm into gardening, especially this time of the year. What should I say about myself? I've been told that my laugh is really fun to listen to.
This is
I can't help it.
I will say it's one of my favorites.
And I think I'm laughing a little bit more because I feel a little nervous. This is fun, but a little nerve-wracking. Which I say I'm a holistic healthcare practitioner. I specialize in homeopathy, in women's health, and in particular, the times of life, the childbearing years into, and then also the menopausal transition, which is almost the entire span of our lives as women, or perhaps I should say anybody who has a uterus, because you'll be affected by the hormonal shifts and stuff in your body by that. I also do a body of work called Finding Your Feminine Core, which I am the creatrix of, which is all about really embodying in ourselves. So I'm going to do a little of that right now and actually get myself quiet.
I love that. Bring it.
I'll be like a little bit more down in my pelvis, a little more present. And thank you so much. I'm honored that I'm your first guest. Super honored.
You're welcome. Yeah. It was an easy choice. It really was. I mean, you know, we were talking about it, and I was saying to Foresta a couple weeks ago, it was like right around the time we went live on Facebook, and I just said, you know, maybe we want to start bringing on guests. And then we talked about it again last week, and she's like, all right, so let's ask Janice. I'm like, definitely let's ask Janice. Yeah, it was.
You probably can't see that I'm blushing, but I'm actually blushing. I'm like hot and blushing, even though my air conditioning's. I think that's like a really normal response when you have, you know, such a deep and beautiful and touching. It's complimentary for sure. I feel really honored. And there's something about being seen. Like I feel really seen by both of you. That, yeah, this is what we mean, right?
Well, yeah, and I think it's this place too for us to be able to celebrate each other. You know, like Heidi had brought this to me a couple months after the pandemic, and it was like, wow, to just even be chosen as a friend to do something
Mm,
connecting and this consistent, I think is a big word for me these days. And then, yeah, just knowing the friendships that you two have had and continue to nurture and foster, really sweet that we circle together in different ways.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Mm.
And it's a journey, isn't it? Isn't not just friendships, but relationships? Because before we started, you said that's a topic that comes up a lot.
Mhm.
It's a journey. It's like there's really, I mean, it can have a beginning, middle, and end depending on what the relationship is, but there's something about that that's I don't know if I understood that when I was younger.
Mm.
Yeah.
Did
I
you?
would, yeah, no, I didn't, certainly didn't. And I am realizing that now, in my late 50s, and how differently I'm doing relationships and friendships, and how I am showing up more so as myself than I ever have before,
Hmm.
and also wanting that in return,
Yeah.
like holding space for those to come into my circle to be part of my life, and also have this expectation: if I'm going to bring myself, I expect the same in return. And if you can't meet that, that's okay, but that's what I want. Because to have an authentic conversation, an authentic relationship, an authentic connection, for me, I have to bring my full self. And that is what I want in return, or
Mhm.
else it's not authentic. It doesn't feel that way. So, um, yeah, that's certainly been part of the journey. And having honest and hard and challenging conversations about things we might not want to talk about, or things that we realize, okay, I need to confront this right now. This was a little richy, so I'm gonna
Right.
rework it. I'm gonna circle back and rework it, and and always own my stuff. Always,
Mm.
yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I agree with.
Us all were together at the grief ritual, right?
Yeah,
That's actually, I think that's when I met you first, and I already knew you, Heidi, because I invited you.
right. And that's when I met Fidesta too. Yeah,
Right, right. So that was a couple of years ago. A friend and colleague of ours, Mickey Beloy, was leading this weekend grieving in community. Talk about difficult conversations, and so I think like we went hyper speed into connecting, you know.
Well, sort of like
We should do that together.
yeah, exactly. If you're doing that and you're being willing to be witnessed in that and to still stay open and connected, it sets a different stage for a friendship.
Completely.
Yeah.
I can still remember conversations you and I had. I literally, I do. I remember you talking about your past and, you know, your personal history. And I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that like it happened yesterday.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something
and what I'm aware of is that that was for you and I, Fidesta. That was the foundation of our friendship.
Mm.
Was that retreat. And so that is where we launched from, which is really kind of amazing. I'm like, wow, who else? And I'm like, wow, what an opportunity and a gift to start from that place. Oh my God. Yeah, there's just been nothing richer, really.
Yeah. It's kind of making me wonder about those sort of circles and the opportunity that that brings to be in a container for 2 or 3 days with a group of people and actually see who you vibe with, who you connect with. I think I think of in my 20s, it was so many like brunches and rock shows and a bit of a surface level, but craving depth, right? But the
Yeah.
places I
Yeah.
was going, it's like it would be pretty low ratios of really getting connection that way. Yeah. It
Right.
became more and more important the older I got. Like I actually want to know people and I want to stretch myself to reveal more who I am too.
I wonder if it's not just the age we were at the time, but also the times that it is now. Because like I look at younger women now, I have 2 daughters in their 20s. And uh, and I know other women, my daughter-in-law, my son's girlfriend, like, you know, they're it's all in this 20s, early 30s, right?
Mhm.
And I see that there's an awakening and an understanding of things that I didn't get until like 40s, 50s. I just turned 60, probably even, yeah, I'd say most of my 50s. So there's something that's moving faster, I think, for everybody if they're willing to. It's like what we were talking about, Heidi, about the sustainable living. Like, are you willing to like actually acknowledge what is in front of you,
Right.
or what's around you?
Right. And do the work on yourself that it takes to get to that place.
And
Yeah.
to be with, like to actually be with what comes up instead of escaping it.
Right, instead of being distracted. And I mean, I don't want to go too far down into the whole, you know, COVID experience, because of course that's a wormhole that can go never ending, but certainly a big part of what was meant to be learned.
Yeah.
You know, I really dig Dr. Zach Bush and his messages, and he says, you know, viruses they're a download of information. And we've gotten the download. What you do with it is, you know, you can put a program in your computer, whether you use it, or an app on your phone, whether you use it or not, it's up to you.
Right.
Mhm.
But the information's here.
Right.
And it's pretty clear whether it was that initial quieting of everybody around the world. Remember, like animals coming out in the city.
Yeah.
Where I live, there was like 6 cars on a major bridge. You know, the smog cleared in cities, right? So
The
we
earth
knew,
healing.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The world really locked down.
Or
Like,
maybe we locked down, the world opened up.
well, yeah. Yeah. Right.
You know?
And I don't know that the world could have done that if we had not locked ourselves in.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So there was some big message. And so going forward, I feel that this is a precious time not to go back into, you know, the sleep or the, you know, that kind of, oh, I see it already. I see how people are zipping around and right. And
Mhm.
there's that kind of consciousness, which for a lot of, I know I felt it. It was also feeling anxious.
Yeah.
You know, like I always say when I talk about energy in the body, anxious, just fast moving energy. Things were, you know, all these changes can feel very fast. So we label it anxious, but maybe it's just like we're getting a speed up.
Yeah.
To learn.
Right. Right.
And can we even be with that, right? Because I had a lot of clients, even friends, be like, oh my gosh, I can't wait till we can get back to normal. This was like last June. And I just had this feeling like, just make sure what you're going back to is worth it. Some of that might still be a yes for you if you're rowing or you're going to yoga or whatever. But some of it might be a no if you had toxic, you know, colleagues and a job you didn't like. And
Right.
it was sort of like, let's not go back to normal just to get back to our comfort blanket.
Right.
Let's actually evaluate what's worth going back to.
Right. And I actually think it's interesting when you say going back, because
Right.
really we're going forward. But if you're going back, you're actually pulling yourself back, right? Literally, which in some ways, like if you think about when you're standing, if you lean back, you dig your heels in, you're not going to move.
Right.
So is that what people want? They just want, or is it what they really want is a sense of their freedom and not feeling so anxious, worried about their, you know, their mortality or whatever, or for others. But they don't know, there's no other words. They haven't like gotten the whole download.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, this is a time, because I don't know if you've read anything about Philadelphia, but today's the 2nd of June. I think tomorrow, they keep pushing the date up. Tomorrow, They are completely reopening the city.
Mm.
That was my reaction.
Mm.
I know. And I'm like, And I've literally been, for like the last 24, 48 hours, I have been sitting still, checking in with myself and asking, how do I really feel about this?
Mm-hmm.
How do I really feel about going back out into the wild with no, because it feels like that. It really feels, because who knows how people are going to be? I don't know, right? And so I'm remembering that I have to trust myself,
Mhm.
my instincts, my convictions, and really get clear about what they are.
Mm.
And if I do have any questions about that, I need to figure that out before I walk out the door or do anything where I'm in,
Right.
large crowds or whatever. Not that I ever go in large crowds, but I'm like, huh. And the fact that they and I don't know what the initial date was that they were going to do this, but the fact that they keep pushing it up, I'm like, oof. That makes me a little nervous, I have to say. Like, let's ease into
Right.
transition. Like most transitions need to be eased into because most of us have been hibernating for months on end. And now we're just gonna birth into the wild. Like, yeah.
It sounds like being ejected
It really
rather than
does. It does.
Well, it's
right?
also I don't know that this society, and I can't speak for other countries, but in America, I don't know that we do well in liminal spaces that are transitional, that are murky, that are like regenerating slowly, right?
Mhm.
There's often this like you break up with someone, everyone's like, girl, go get, start dating next week. And there's like, hold on, I have a whole heart full of grief I have to tend to.
Right.
And I actually think grief's going to be a big part of this, that if people are just going out there, they might be really bypassing some healing.
Yes.
That's my ethos. And I also totally get someone being like, I just want to go back to my pool and,
Right.
have
Right.
a good summer. So, but I'm holding that like we can each trust our own pace
Right.
and not feel like we have to follow the really gleeful, I've been calling it the gold rush. It's like this energy that's just like, we're all just gonna go do it. And it's like, but we're not all the same.
Right.
And you know what's so fascinating when I'm listening to you, both of you, I'm thinking, so I'm noticing more and more people taking their masks off. And I'm also watching myself that when I'm coming close to somebody, I'm feeling into that energy space. The fascinating thing is we were told to stay 6 feet apart. That's actually the exterior of our energy space. That how much it can go bigger, it can be smaller, but there's all these studies that have been done, how much electromagnetic radiation literally comes out of our bodies from our hearts. It's cool stuff. So 6 feet is about this, is it literally how far our energy, which means that if you're 6 feet away from someone else, you're not in their energy.
Right.
Right. So I'm like, this is not about contagion. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm like literally noticing that I'm standing back a little bit more and going, it actually feels easier here. And I could write it in my head that, oh, that's because I don't want to get close. I might get sick. No, I don't really feel that. I feel like, especially right now in the Northeast, this is the decrease. We have so much carbon that's been locked up in the plants. Things are not flying around the air as much. There's less transmission of the virus. So I feel actually this is the best time. This is why it dropped down last year. This was the end of wave 1.
Right.
So no, it's not that. It's this other feeling of that what I'm going to call anxious feeling. If I get closer, is like, what? I'm not quite sure knowing what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
Like, what my story I was telling myself and still do at times, like, ooh, I don't want to be too close to you. Maybe you'll get me sick. But why didn't I ever think about that at any other time in my life?
Right.
Like viruses and bacteria, they're around all the time.
Yeah.
So now it's just like, and I actually notice I'm more at ease with myself when I have keeping that space a little more.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, me too. And I think for me, it took me a little while to get used to the 6 feet of, social distancing and that kind of thing. And it took a little while getting used to wearing a mask. And now that I've been wearing a mask for a year and social distancing, for me, that is my new norm. I'm really comfortable because, like you said, the closeness, like I'm going, I'm feeling into that. I'm not sure about it. And so there's this there's this doubt, this questioning, this doubt, if you will, that kind of creeps in. And I'm like, all right, I need to pay attention to that. That's my intuition. That's my self saying, okay, that's a sign. You need to pay attention to that. And just because someone else wants to come close doesn't mean that you're okay with that, and doesn't mean that you have to participate either. And I have to remind myself of this over and over as people start congregating and being more, having more side or foot traffic on the streets and whatnot. Um, and the other thing about, for me, the other thing about distancing is that I feel like I can see people better because I can see their whole selves at a distance as opposed to close up.
Hmm.
And I hadn't thought about that before. And I was just like, until like maybe, I don't know, 6 months ago. And I was like, yeah, I'm actually looking at this whole person and their energy field, not just sort of assessing the whole thing. And I'm like, okay. And then I can actually be curious about it. But if I'm up close to someone, how much, I feel their energy here, but how much am I really seeing? You know?
'Cause that's that like merging, you know? That's when the energies are, when we're not really thoughtful about where we end and someone else begins energetically. So then it's like all big mush mush, right?
Yeah.
And then we're like, oh, so like I think for me, I can't speak for anybody else. I think, or Heidi, we've kind of seeing this similar. Part of the information that I got from all of this was that experience of, yeah, what is it like to be a little bit more in my space? Literally,
Yeah.
figuratively, energetically, like all of it.
And to know yourself in that place too, right? I mean, I've had a different experience of like all my teaching, all my coaching has been on Zoom since March. And I'm used to the data set that is like chest, shoulders, head, right? I noticed this when I went to the farmer's market recently. I have gotten really great at this data set, right, for 16 months. And going to the farmer's market and seeing people almost the opposite of what you're saying, Heidi, head to toe, and like the gait and the slouch and the wardrobe and the smells. And it was like, oh, wow, this is like 82 more data points than I've been tracking for. So like, I actually need time to like slowly gain capacity back up to, New York City pre-pandemic levels. Because I've been in here a little bit more. And I think a lot of people might relate to like, oh, I've been working from home and on Zoom. And now if I have to go back to the office or whatever, expect there to be some capacity building and potential overwhelm.
Yeah. And be gentle. Give yourself permission to take your time if that's what you need, and be gentle with yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, and get rid of the judgment, because the judgment, as we all know, is just bullshit anyway. But really be intentional about taking care of yourselves. And I'm talking, I mean, I feel like I'm talking to the introverts, but I think it's affecting people across the board in different ways. It's not just the introverts. So whoever it's affecting, if you're feeling like you want to put on the brakes a little bit before going back out in the wild, put on the brakes, and it's okay, because you will thank yourself later for actually checking in and asking yourself what feels good to you.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
This to me feels like a whole other layer of individuating and differentiating. It's like we did it as teenagers. We might have done it when we
Yes.
left our friends in our 20s, right? But this feels like a collective. How are you going to individuate and trust your sensitivity, your instincts, your needs, even if it looks very different from the 28 people next to you? Like, how can you still, like, there's nothing wrong with you. There's just who you are, how you're wired, and what you need. It
Right.
feels important.
I think it's hugely important. And what's coming to me as we're talking is this feeling of this, it's like a pause. If you come back to yourself, like you pause, and then it's like what we were saying before, we going back, we going forward, what are we doing? Because now it's, the world is still the world. We're still dealing with the same issues. What am I going to eat? You know, what am I going to drink? You know, what do I throw out in the garbage? What do I wear on my body? You know, we're still dealing with our lives. What's my work? You know, but now it's, am I interfacing with all of these parts of my life in a, it's interesting, you said individuated. It's like from a more conscious place, from me, not just, oh, that's what everyone does.
Mm-hmm.
Like Heidi, we were talking about the conversation about people throwing garbage out the window.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the two of us, like almost at the same time, we're like, it's just so hard to believe that, and you see, I've seen it. Haresh, have you ever seen someone just literally throw a bag of garbage out their window from their car? Yeah. It's such a foreign thing for me to even conceive of doing. Like if I by accident let's, you know, throw something out the window, I'm like, should I stop? You know, like I'm just, wait, where am I going with this? Oh, so yeah, so this idea of individuating is like, what happens if I stop and I say to myself, what exactly am I doing? All right, so what if I saw someone else do it and that gives me permission, like the collective permission? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what all of that, I think that's a big download that we've gotten, you know, informational download that we've gotten from the SARS-CoV virus is literally stop and think, like we're individuals, like what you say.
Mm-hmm.
And I love when you say it, Heidi, you know, take care of yourself. I would say it's one of the most significant things that you have said. And I keep like, I hear it every time, like, yep, do that again, Janice, do that again. You're such a great role model for that.
Thank you.
You are welcome.
Thank you. And you know, I wanted to add too that we don't have to do this alone.
Mm.
Like we don't have to transition or do this transition alone. We can do it with community, with people that are friends or people that are like-minded.
Yeah.
And for me, I know that sometimes I do need a little more support around certain things. Or if I'm getting stuck around something, I'm like, okay, I'm not supposed to take this on myself, by myself right now. So I'm going to reach out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, and I will also speak for myself, but I also think that I'm speaking for a lot of people when I say the words, you know, we oftentimes, like I find myself feeling like I have to have permission to ask for or to do something. And I'm like, not really, but like, not really, but sometimes I feel like I need permission. And I'm like, okay, give yourself permission, give the world permission, give your friends permission. Like, it's okay to do that. It's okay to feel that way. It's okay to take your time. It's okay to take like 100% radical self-care. I can't say enough about it, really. Because everyone is on their journey. Everyone's doing things differently. It's just the way it is. And there's no wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
What is right for you is right for you.
Mm-hmm.
And we're certainly fed this message of, no, everyone has to do it the same way. Collective, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it feeds into some primal instincts, right? A sense of belonging and being part of the community. And so even if we know that intellectually and, you know, kind of let that trickle down into the heart space, it's like there is a primal scared animal that goes, oh my gosh, am I being left behind? Or will I be accepted, especially with the different divisive conversations that are happening? And it's like, we have to tend, I like how Heidi says it, in my words, it's like, tend to your nervous system. This is going to bring things up that are your, tender places, really.
Right, right. I was just today listening to this wonderful presentation about stress. And they were talking about.
Wasn't that remarkable?
You were right. Yeah, it was really good. What was it called? It was called. It starts with a P, but I can't think of it. Anyway,
yeah.
So the idea, like what you were saying, that primitive place, that's the amygdala, the deep, almost the very deep part of the lowest part of the well, not lowest, but the earliest part of development of the brain that we can link back to much more primitive types of creatures. And what I was thinking is like, some of us automatically go there, boom, right? Even if we want to be part of the group, like, this nervous, like, I got to be part of the group. But what I love about the work I do as a homeopath is I get to look at all different things in nature, like animals, because everything has the potential of healing energy. So it could be from plants. We certainly know lots about plants and herbal medicine and, things like this. It could come from minerals. It could come from animals. So it's so fascinating because there are herd animals. We think of human beings as like these groups, but there are also animals that live by themselves. Mm-hmm. Even those big, like, think about some of the predatory cats. Some of them are by themselves, right? Or certain birds, like the big birds, like the eagles. They don't fly in flocks. So it's really interesting that as humans, we want this connection, but there's also a lot of us who want that individualized freedom. I want to come in and be part of the group, but I also want the choice not to be part of the group. You know what I mean?
Well, I feel that's the download, right? Is like, can you be you and then see who wants to play in that sandbox versus like not wanting to risk losing connection, being some strategy of yourself.
Right.
Like, actually go be you and see who actually shows up. That feels much juicier to me.
Exactly. And again, this idea of this huge space around us, like, okay, so if this is my space, let's say I only do 3 feet out, okay? Because that seems like where people are kind of hovering now. Like, they've gone from 6 feet to 3 feet. That's usually where anyway. So like, I'm like, okay, I got me here. I'm feeling more me here. I'm like, oh yeah, you're over there. Do I want to be part of that? Do I know? I think we've like hit on like a crucial part of the messaging from what happened in the pandemic and what this virus gave to us.
Yeah.
It's a gift. Everyone's looking at like, oh my God, it's terrible. But it's not.
No, I have loved it. I have. I really.
What have you loved?
I have loved. I have loved being isolated and not having to explain myself. And not feeling like, because I really can entertain myself and I'm okay entertaining myself. I laugh at myself at least 6 times a day, at least. And I love that. I love that about myself. Like, I don't know who else can say that, but I can say that. And I love that I can do that. And so I don't need a lot of, I do need connection, but I don't need a lot of outside kind of entertainment. Yeah. I'm entertaining. I'm myself. I am, and so, so like, I really have enjoyed being sort of on my own and individuated on some level, and the freedom to reach out when I want to reach out.
Right.
And not feeling any sort of, not feeling badly for not, just like, this is where I am.
Right.
Yeah.
It's more normalized.
For me, it's been a lot more normalized. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Because when you said I love it, I was like, wait, you're not loving the actual illness that can come.
No.
That's not pleasant. I've
No,
helped
I've
many
enjoyed
people
the
in my
quarantine
practice.
piece of it,
Yeah,
the hibernation piece of it. Yeah.
yeah. Cool.
Yeah. What
Especially
about you,
because
Jen?
it's been interesting just to watch myself and how, because it started last March, right? Okay. So
Yeah.
we've been in a year and 3 months. So it's been interesting to watch just the whole year and how through the seasons, the
Yes.
months and the seasons,
Yes.
how we've all been with ourselves and how we've reacted to what's happening and how the numbers have changed over the course of the
Right.
15 months, you know,
Right.
because we know it's going to rise again. We know it is. It just is, because that's what happens in colder weather.
It's
You
the
know,
nature of
we're
viruses.
right now we're in June, and here it's going to be 90 next week.
Right.
So, you know, that's happening. But yeah, it's part of that roller coaster.
Right.
Yeah.
Fresh, you were going to ask me. I was going to ask you. You go first. What's been for you? Like Heidi's like, I love it. You know, she's really enjoyed the
Yeah.
experience of, being
Well,
with herself.
I mean, I shared that a bit. You know, I'm more of an intro extra. I'm the ambivert, right? So I like my time out with people and like the energy of that and the curiosity of others. And I think the blessing has been going far more inward than I might have, like going deeper with my own world, and being quirkier. Like there's a point eventually where it's like, I'm not even seeing people. Do I need a bra? I'm just going to put a raincoat over my pajamas and go take a walk. Like there was a point where it was like, wow, this really doesn't matter. You know, all the push-up bras went to the back of the closet, and some of the makeup and stuff did too. And it was like, this is kind of cool that I am feeling freer to just be like, who cares? I'm like the weird lady in the neighborhood with a raincoat on, you know, just enjoying myself and having what feels to me more like my childlike energy of and it might be to your point of like being in my own sphere and being like, wow, I'm not getting that like spongy empathic thing going on as much.
I love
I'm
that.
getting to see how like quirky and weird and how I can flow through a day just entirely entertained. I was an only child, so very self-entertained. And I think in my practice, what I'm seeing, which feels really good to me, especially working with teenagers, is teenagers who have asked for help for a while. Their parents finally got to see them daily at home. And so if they got the call from the school, it was like, oh, my kid, whatever, they're too busy, they're at work. All of a sudden, all these parents are wrestling with the reality of their kid needing some support, and those kids are getting support. So that feels like a win in my world. Like clear-sighted parenting and young people who, before they have to embark out in the world, are getting some support and resources that they might not have gotten in the busyness of the old world.
The old world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Janice?
Yeah, it's so fascinating to listen to everything both of you are saying. I'm like, yeah. And then I'm like, okay, so what's been my individual personal experience? Several things. One is that the schedule that I was keeping, I like routine. I'm the kind of person who I get into my exercise routine. I have my eating, like what time I'm going to eat. I tend to eat similar things. You know, I like routine. It works for me. It jives with my personality and who I am. So my routine got changed. Everything stopped. And in the back of my mind, I was thinking, and have been for a while, when is this going to change? Like I would drive to this pool that I like to swim every day. So I would drive to this pool and, you know, I did my routine, I did my swimming and whatever. Now it's closed. So at first it was so weird. I was the fish out of water. Like I didn't know what to do with myself. And I wanted to start hiking. There's a mountain near me, Hook Mountain. I really wanted to start hiking because I just like, I wanted to make an effort to put that into my routine. Well, that was easy enough to do, right? I could go and hike. No one, like literally no one was on the trail. Or if there were, people were like more than 6 feet apart. They're like, ah. But anyway, so there I was, like in something new that wouldn't have happened if my hand wasn't forced.
Mm.
Which is kind of, in a way, it seems almost a little sad that it took that for me to finally change, because I had the feeling like it needed to change. You know what I mean? Like I got that sense that this needs to come to a close probably sooner than later. And then walking that trail almost every single day for over a year. Whoa. I mean, I talk about connecting to nature, and it's so much part of our health and our wellness. But now I'm like, literally, I'm not just talking the talk, I'm walking the walk, literally walking the walk. And it's just been such a new and amazing practice. In a way, it's a walking meditation. Most of the time I do it by myself. And so that's been like a huge thing for me that's changed. And out of that, kind of like almost in a strange way, almost like a freedom that, try new things, shake it up a little bit, and don't wait for some exterior or, force to make it happen. So I decided, okay, I'm going to try intermittent fasting. Okay, let's see what that's like. Oh, actually, I think I started that before. But anyway, I'm just saying, it was like, oh, I like working on Zoom because I am empathic. I have a hard time not absorbing. The work I do is intimate and personal. I'm really in there with people, like really meaningfully. And I have learned to keep myself more, having a sense of me and them, but yet this is easier for me. And it got pretty friggin' crazy busy for a while. Yeah. Almost 100 people have come through my practice who've had COVID symptoms, working with them. Happy to say homeopathy helped everybody. No one in my practice has either died or wound up with long haulers or anything like this. So this was easier. This helped me. So I kind of had a chance to reframe, look at things differently. And it's interesting, Heidi, both of you had said about spending time by myself. I had already spent a chunk of time by myself the last couple of years. So I almost felt like I had some preparation. I was grateful. I'm like, okay, I can handle this. And then when I did have those sweet moments to see my family, my grandchildren, it was, I can't even put words to it. Well, there's a Yiddish phrase, it's Shepping Nachas. You're so filled with happy and joy and pleasure and just it's a sound. It made it even more tender and sweet and delicious. So yeah, that's some of the things that I think have really happened for me. And I also want to say that I feel very privileged. I think all of us have a certain level of privilege that we've been able to be by ourselves, and it's been okay, because for many people it hasn't. And it's heartbreaking, whether it's because of dysfunctional relationships or, poverty or lack of ability to continue work. I mean, all of those things and more. So I'm extremely grateful that how it impacted my life was more positive. Even learning to deal with anxiety, definitely much more working with it in a positive way. So yeah.
I appreciate you naming that for those who didn't, who really had a unimaginably challenging time.
And still continuing on.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you bringing up the anxiety piece, because it feels like such a human part of this. I used to, I don't know, the existential dilemma of, uncertainty, like life just having uncertainty. I used to grasp at things like, oh, in 2 weeks we're going to this concert, or oh, this is happening. Like there were these places that I could anchor. And when all those plans were removed, I really had to look at, can I befriend this existential uncertainty that brings me anxiety, makes me feel small in a good way as a human, but like also small in a scary way. Like that was the work too. Instead of being like, oh, I can tether myself to all these people and all these events and all these plans, right? I think it was very hard for the planners. Just mentally initially, to be like, whoa, what do I do if I don't have this strategy?
Yeah.
This coping mechanism.
Right. So the other thing that as we were sitting here talking, and I'm looking at the two of you and listening, the other thing for me that has changed is my relationships and how they've deepened. And as I said earlier, I'm not a surface person, so that's not the language that I speak.
Right.
And I don't know if I've ever really thought about whether or not I can go any deeper than I've gone or whatever, but I have. And that has been an invitation for those I'm in relationship with to also go to a deeper level. And so that's been really yummy and delicious and vulnerable what I've gotten from my relationships in this time, I don't know that it would have happened without going through this. So for me, that is definitely an additional gift that I've gotten from that. And also the relationships that weren't necessarily deep have shifted. And like my mom was in Mesa for 6 months and we FaceTimed. Like my mom FaceTimed. Do you know what a big deal that is? It's a big deal. And she had a hard time finding the camera sometimes, and that's totally okay. But she FaceTimed, and I was even able to keep her on the camera for like 6 or 7 minutes, as opposed to 30 seconds or 45 seconds. It's a joke that runs through our family, but it was really sweet. And so I'm just appreciating even those things, just the little, I would say, nuances that maybe weren't so obvious before. I'm like, wow, when I look back at the course of the year and everything that has changed and been different. Yes, I've had challenges, and yes, I have spent time in tears and anger and frustration. And I've also, had a lot of joy in my life too with it.
Heidi, when you said changes, what popped in my thoughts was it really changes, or was it that we really were kind of like looking under a magnifying glass? Because what's really been new?
I know.
It's not new that all these animals were living, in the, let's say, in the city. It's just they weren't coming out, now they're coming out, or whatever, or it's not new that the skies can clear. I'm just talking the bigger stuff, when literally the first lockdown.
Yeah.
Because when I think about it, it's not really new. It's how am I interfacing with what's happening? That's what's new.
Yeah.
Can
I read this
relationships are changing?
Yeah. Can I read this 1 or 2 lines? Okay, so this is a book that I've been hearing about. It's called Braiding Sweetgrass. It's written by Robin Wall Kimmerer, Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teachings of Plants. She's an Indigenous woman, yeah. So the introduction, she's going into this whole kind of mythology of the sky. What is she? The sky woman? Anyway, sky woman, yeah. And just this line, so interesting. What does it take to abandon what does not work and take risks of uncertainty? We'll need courage. We'll need each other's hands to hold and faith in the geese to catch us. It would help to sing. The landing might not be soft, but land holds many medicines. Propelled by love, ready to work, we can jump towards the world we want to co-create with pockets full of seeds and rhizomes. That's one paragraph. I've only read 6 pages. I'm like, oh, every line is poetry. And like, what will it take for us to abandon that? And it is uncertain. That's the dealing with that anxiety, that fast moving energy, you know? And here we're being given this time to really be in slow moving energy, but we so often associate that with depression or sadness.
Yeah.
Which is a slower moving energy. But it's only one way to label it or to experience it. So here I'm like kind of what's the word? Almost like rewilding. I'm like coming back into these different experiences. Like, what is this fast energy that I'm calling anxiety? What can I do with it? How can I work with it? Or when it's been super slow or quiet or lonely, or man, it's challenging, right?
It is challenging. Yeah.
Then the beauty of this, where we can get together in all different places and have that, you know what she writes, like hold each other's hands with love,
Yeah.
right? So I have felt more connected in a way with this Zooming.
Yeah.
Certainly than telephone. I mean, I've used phone. It's not that I haven't.
Right.
And I will say, you know, coming to the end of talking an hour, I feel a little bit like my eyeballs are like a little bit like vibrating, kind of weird. Like I'm looking away going, whoa, I gotta like take a break. You know, like I feel that.
Yeah.
But I'm also grateful for this technology, all these minerals that have made these things, you know, that we've been able to extract from our earth. Yeah.
Thank you so much for reading that. That was gorgeous. And it's still kind of trickling into my soul a little bit, the truth of that.
Braiding sweetgrass.
Let's put that on our pages, because I'm gonna order that. I'm definitely gonna order that book.
That's gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been hearing about this book for quite a while, and I'm just glad that I finally am taking the time.
Yeah. And Janice, thank you too for just naming, like we can actually take the labels off those energies and just feel those energies. Yeah. Because I found for me sometimes that restless sped up is like that yang energy that's like purposefully agitated and wants to create. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes that low key energy has just been replenishment versus depression. So it's Absolutely. Super helpful to take labels off the energy and just be like, what's this asking of me right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know which of Wayne Dyer's books, he has a whole scale of all the emotions on the energetic, like from slow to fast. It's really cool. He's not the only one who worked on it, but I mean, I just remember reading that, and I don't, because he's written so many books. Yeah.
So here we are at the end of our hour. I'm just blown away at how I feel in this moment and how connected I feel and grateful I am for the both of you. That you were our first guest and you were so willing to do it.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
And the depth and the depth and the breadth that you brought to the conversation. Your wisdom is, I could listen to you for days. I love it. Really. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. So we often close with a question, which is fun, light. It's from a box. It's called Chat Pack.
Chat Pack.
So, this is tonight's question. What movie have you watched the greatest number of times?
And we have to answer. The greatest number of times.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what it is. Okay. The movie I think I've watched the greatest number of times. I don't watch movies over, I'm not a repeat, but this one I have. It's called All of Me, starring Steve Martin and Lily Tomlin. And hands down, one of my most favorite movies, and I have seen it many times. Definitely watch it.
I'll
Okay.
put it on my list.
All of Me.
I love both of those actors.
Yeah. Yeah. Me too.
The whole movie is awesome, and there's the teeny piece at the very end where they're dancing together that I literally wanted to watch the whole thing just to watch that.
Oh,
There's something about it that just makes me so happy.
oh, I love that.
It's a great story.
I love that. Foresta?
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
It's a tie for me. I love those epic period pieces that have some level of love in them. So I'd say probably Braveheart.
Ooh.
Or Last of the Mohicans. Those are probably the two I've watched the most. And I do have to fast forward in my later years past all the violence, but I really love the stories in them.
Wow.
Yeah. Epic period pieces.
Yeah. I hear that. Yeah.
What about you, Heidi?
I had a hard time with this because I'm one of those people who does watch movies over and over. I'm a repetitive movie watcher, especially if I love a film. So I'm thinking it's probably a tie between The Devil Wears Prada and I Am Sam. And they couldn't be any different. Like they're worlds apart. They're completely different plot lines. One just will bring me to tears every time. Like I probably cry throughout the movie. And the other one, I'm just like, I mean, I love, yeah, anyway, it's just lovely. So, yeah.
Thank you. It's sweet to learn.
And it's so interesting. We had really very different movies.
Very, very different movies. Yeah.
And how much does that reflect about us, our personalities, and who we are? It's so interesting.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, ladies.
I don't want it to end. Like eating good cookies. I don't want to stop.
It's like when you're like 12, I'm like, no, you hang up. No, you hang up.
Yes.
Yeah.
The quintessential Jewish goodbye. Okay, goodbye. Okay, goodbye. Wait, one more thing. I don't think it's only Jewish, I know, but. All right. Who's going to say goodbye?
Well, I'm going to close our recording. Yeah. And thank everyone who's watching. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting us. If you have a comment or a question about anything, feel free to pop it into the comments. We will respond at some point. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.